Hello, I'm Mr. Phobos, and I don't really know how to open a video, so I'm just going to go ahead and start. What if I told you the greatest Superman story ever written wasn't a comic? It wasn't a movie, it wasn't a cartoon. It was a mass-market paperback from 1978, the kind of book that used to spin on a wire rack next to the gum at a drugstore, and it features Superman and Lex Luthor teaming up to save a secret message written by Albert Einstein. I'm not exaggerating for the hook. I mean this literally. This might be the single best piece of Superman writing that exists, and almost nobody has read it. The author's name is Elliot S. Maggin. He wrote Superman comics for 15 years during what a lot of fans consider the character's best stretch, and he'd go on to win the Bill Finger Award for it. That's a funny name for an award, but I didn't name it. This book isn't a comic. This is Maggin writing the actual psychological blueprint for who Superman is. Not what he can do, but who he is. Quick housekeeping. Because the title trips people up, I'm not talking about the Jeff Johns comic arc that shares almost the same name, and I'm not talking about the two-part origin episode from the animated series either. Different medium, different decade, different story. I'm talking about the novel that Elliot S. Maggin wrote in 1978, released the exact same day as Superman the movie. Same crystal logo, Reeves' face on the cover, a section of movie stills glued into the middle of the book. Every visual signal said, cheap tie-in novelization, cash grab, don't bother. Well, ignore all of that. This isn't a novelization. It's an origin story. Really a sequel to its own version of Superman's origin, and it quietly rewrites pieces of that origin, sets Krypton in a completely different star system than the film does, and takes on a more philosophical weight in 300 pages than the movie attempts to do in 2 hours. Here's the setup, no major spoilers. Before baby Kal-El's rocket even lands, a message from Jor-El reaches the single smartest man on the planet, Albert Einstein. Jor-El wants Einstein to raise his son. Einstein, being Einstein, however, says no, because he's smart. He says that on Earth, compassion matters more than genius. So instead, he goes undercover, travels to Kansas, and handpicks the Kents himself. Then the book jumps forward. Clark Kent and a young Lex Luthor grow up in Smallville together. Same town, parallel childhoods, completely opposite trajectories. Cut to the present day, Einstein is long dead, and sealed away since his death is one final document, his last message to the world, and Luthor tries to steal it. And the second he gets his hands on it, an alien operative working for an interstellar tyrant who rules a planet called Auric jumps his claim and steals it right out from under him. So Luthor, Superman's oldest enemy, has to team up with the one man on Earth he can't stand just to get it back. 2 geniuses, 1 prize, and a villain whose actual plan involves bending black holes to cut off an arm of the galaxy just so nobody with any authority can stop him. What exactly about this book makes it awesome? Well, here's why I think this book, more than almost anything else in the entire Superman catalog, is the best expression of Superman. First, the powers. Maggin's Superman is godlike, obviously, but every single time he uses those powers, his intelligence is right there with him. That's the part nobody dramatizes, and it's the part that actually makes sense if you take the premise seriously, even for a second. He doesn't just fly around punching things. He traces a phone call by combining X-ray vision and super hearing, like a walking wiretap. He uses his heat vision to stimulate electrons, and then, with the power of an electron microscope, tracks the electrons as they are moving through the wire. It's just astonishing. He needs to catch someone before they hit the ground, so he shapes a cushion of moving air with his own breath, soft enough to land on safely. He needs to get through a bank vault so that same breath becomes a blade of compressed air, thin and precise enough to slice steel. He's fast enough that nobody, and I mean nobody, gets the drop on him, even when they've planned for it. And there's a moment, I believe it's in the second book, Miracle Monday, where he vaporizes a tumor with his heat vision, then immediately cools the surrounding tissues so the brain isn't damaged by the heat. That single moment is the whole ethos of this version of the character. Godlike power, married to precision, foresight, and genuine care about the consequences. He is also an intellectual, an investigative reporter by trade, someone who thinks his way through problems as often as he flies through them. The strength is almost never the interesting part. Second, Lex Luthor. This isn't, without exaggeration, one of the best takes on the character ever put to page. Maggin doesn't write a cartoon villain. He writes a tragic, hyper-rational man who genuinely believes Superman is bad for humanity, that depending on him is a kind of surrender, and Luthor and Superman are written like an old married couple. Decades of history between them, Luthor hates him, Superman doesn't really hate Luthor back, and Maggin makes you believe for the entire book that they're two sides of the exact same coin. Third, the scope. This isn't just a Metropolis story. It goes cosmic. Other planets, other species, cosmic law enforcement watching from the edges of the plot. The Vision's actual scheme involves manipulating black holes to physically sever a piece of the galaxy from the rest of it, just to put himself beyond anyone's jurisdiction. That's an enormous swing for a drugstore paperback from 1978. And fourth, and this might be the real reason this book holds up, Maggin actually tracks the consequences of everything. Not just plot consequences, philosophical ones, sociological ones, cosmological ones. What does it actually do to a civilization to know an effectively all-powerful being is watching over it? Does it make people better? Does it make them worse? Does it make them soft? Maggin asks that question with total sincerity inside a book that is also funny, warm, and genuinely thrilling. Hurt and humor and real intellectual weight, all in the same paragraph sometimes. That combination is rare. It was rare in 1978. It's even rarer now. And here's what actually gets me. While this book sat around free and unread, Hollywood spent the last 2 years trying to launch a new shared Superman universe from scratch. And by any honest measure, it is struggling. The sequel that was supposed to build on Superman's momentum, Supergirl, posted a worse second weekend collapse than The Flash, the film everybody agreed had sunk the old universe. The flagship show has been bleeding audience by its own finale. Basic questions about what's even canon are still unresolved 3 years in. Meanwhile, a paperback from 1978 already had the two genius team-up, the cosmic stakes, and a villain whose ambition actually matched his power level, sitting on a free, author-read audiobook that nobody bothered to option. So, how do you actually get your hands on this thing? Here's the best part. Maggin narrated both novels himself. The whole thing, cover to cover, for free on his own podcast. Elliot Makes Stuff Up is the name of the podcast. That is a legitimate author-read audiobook of a best-selling novel sitting out there in the open while Audible has somehow managed to ignore it for the better part of a decade. If you'd rather read it yourself, the text is also hosted completely free, fully authorized on his Superman Through the Ages archive. If you're a collector and you want the actual 1978 paperback, Reeves face and all, check Abe Books or eBay. They turn up more often than you'd think, usually for next to nothing. And if you just want a clean modern copy to hold in your hands, there are print-on-demand reissues available through major retailers, Books A Million included. Hey, that's it. That's the end of my first video. Drop your own favorite Superman story in the comments. I want to know what I'm missing. And if you would like more content like this, do the usual stuff, you know. Like, share, subscribe, send me Bitcoin, send me Ethereum, PayPal, Patreon. I'm not really picky. So this is the end. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Until next time, be seeing ya.